गुरु हैं, वैश्विक स्तर पर हिंदू सरोकारों से लोगों को जोड़ने का पुनीत कार्य कर रहे हैं। मंच पर आगमन पंडित सतीश शर्मा जी का। और इस सत्र का संचालन कर रहे हैं श्री राहुल रोशन, भारतीय ब्लॉगर, व्यवसायी, एंटरप्रेन्योर, मीडिया प्रोफेशनल और ऑप इंडिया के सीईओ हैं। श्री राहुल रोशन जी, जो एक दक्षिणपंथी समाचार पोर्टल है जिसने नकली समाचार प्रकाशित किया है। आपने 2016 तक फेकिंग न्यूज के संपादक के रूप में कार्य किया है। मंच पर आपका स्वागत श्री राहुल जी रोशन। और इस सत्र के संचालन के लिए अब माइक्रोफोन श्री राहुल रोशन जी को समर्पित। एक बार फिर हम आपको बताना चाहेंगे, हमारे पहले सत्र का विषय है वाई सिविलाइजेशनल रेजिस्टेंस मैटर, जिसके स्पॉन्सर हैं रविंद्र घानेकर और को स्पॉन्सर हैं मनु वेग। मंच अब श्री राहुल रोशन जी को समर्पित।
Good morning and welcome everyone. It's good now? No. Hello? It's working now? Yeah. Anyway, so that was a note of thanks for every one of you for turning up and for Sanjay ji for such a wonderful event. I have been given this easy as well as tough job of moderating this. It's easy because you don't have to give too much of gyan, even though you are dying to. And it's tough because, there are so many people with so much of, expertise. To get the best out of them is always going to be, a challenge, how to make sure that the panel is, it talks to its full potential. But anyway, without spending too much time, I think good and simple way to organize it could be that we go to everyone for their opening remarks about what they believe why this topic is so much important, and as the things progresses from those opening remarks, we could get into discussion if time permits, and I will take that opportunity to start with my own opening remarks. So when we talk about why civilizational resistance matters, of late, obviously, this whole idea about being a civilizational patriot or a civilizational warrior, these things have become a buzzword. Now, I have mostly dealt with popular narratives, and the earliest that I can think when anything about civilization got into somewhat popular narrative was in late 90s with the publication of that book called The Clash of Civilization by Samuel Huntington. Now, when that book came, most of the criticism was that it's really far-fetched. It's not going to happen. If you remember, that was the time when the world was opening up to liberalization, including our own country, the late 90s I'm talking about. It was like, all these identities are going to disappear, and it's only there is going to be some great global identity, single identity. Late 90s itself, the one book wonder, Arundhati Roy, had won the Booker Prize, and she used to strut around saying, I'm a global citizen. There is no, I'm not an Indian or anything. And that kind of belief was, in vogue. Now, suddenly, it has just been not even 3 decades. And this whole idea that anything around civilization or anything around cultural or ethnic identity is a thing of past, that we are living in a post-ideology world, that assertion, which was one of the biggest criticism of this theory when it came out, that itself appears ludicrous now, because the so-called liberal narrative now is completely based on your identity. I'm obviously talking about the woke identity now. All these great liberal ideas that you are all about free speech, your individual rights, those things have taken a backseat, and now everything that you derive, all your rights, all your privileges, all your grievances, the so-called lived experiences, is not about individuals, it's all about the groups and identities. So in such a scenario, when identity has become the central point, both from the so-called left side of the ideology, and obviously it was always there from the right side, you cannot shut your eyes and believe that anything like civilizational identity, anything like your pride in civilization, that doesn't matter. So obviously it matters more than ever, I would say, and that's why the resistance also matters. Uh, so when we talk about resistance, obviously I broadly would say that we are battling, three kind of resistance or challenges. One, and I believe, obviously, the other speakers can chip in with their own thoughts. Uh, I would believe is the problem of subversion to of our civilization. That is the biggest challenge. That's the biggest resistance we have to fight and we have on our hand. The way our history has been corrupted, the way our history has been subverted, and that's where Vishnu Jain ji is leading the resistance, especially at least in the case of Mathura and Kashi. uh, the way it has been turned upside down, our own identity has been attempted to be erased. Everything in this country was brought by Mughals. So that has been turned as if that is our only history. I mean, if Aurangzeb comes today and meets his biggest fangirl, he would say, "Oh lady, please hold on. What you were saying, how the way you were trying to portray me is not me." you know whatever I did was because Allah told me to do this, and you are doing this thing. So and they wouldn't even know all the kind of things that they have brought to India, from biryani to microphone to everything. So one is obviously the kind of the resistance on history that has to be there, because your identity is being basically subverted. And now, not only history being rewritten or repurposed, we are also seeing this whole idea, and that's actually what they call it, of alternative histories. That's gaining a lot of intellectual and academic backing as well. So suddenly, Ravan becomes a Bahujan. A Brahmin Ravan, suddenly he becomes a Bahujan, and the entire Diwali becomes a festival that should not be celebrated. Uh, Holika becomes a Bahujan suddenly, while her nephew is a Savarna. All this weird kind of alternative histories. Mahisasur becomes your one of your ancestors, while the rest of the Hindu history uh, is fiction for you. So this whole idea, this whole subversion, this weird subversion, which is going on unchecked, it's full of contradictions. It's hardly based on any logic, and yet it's not only gaining ground here in India, but even abroad, where everything Hindu is being termed as something outlandish, something savarna, something casteist, and a little bit of which we saw recently in, I would say, in United States also, and Professor, Satish ji can say, where everything, anything happening in a Hindu temple is Hindutva. That's the kind of narrative that's going on, and that's also a part of subversion itself. So this, I believe, is the biggest challenge. The whole idea is that to fill you with negativity, take out all the positive things from whatever civilizational history that you had, so that you have no pride. You have only shame and guilt. Only negativity is left. The other two things quickly, without myself taking too much time, I would say that when it comes to civilizational resistance, it's obviously sorry, I have a little cold. So apart from this problem or challenge of subversion, there is a problem of conversion, obviously, which is more of an, we can say, as an external threat. The proselytization of the challenges that also has to be registered, and that matters. We have seen how, of late, especially people on Twitter would have seen, there are so many video clips of these, pastors indulging in very weird kind of exercises to, heal people, or to, and, Changai Sabha, what they say, the and all that they do, and suddenly everyone starts falling, and they're all kind of things they become cured of. There was recently a viral clip, पहले मैं नहीं बोल सकती थी, हाँ, अब मैं बोल सकती हूँ, and all kind of weird things, and these things, such tools of conversions, it's not new. It has happened. It has been happening for so long. In Jharkhand, murga bhat, chicken and rice. There would be pastors would organize such kind of thing कि चलो वहाँ मुर्गा भात मिलेगा, and they would put in something, some medicines over there, and you would get cured of some diseases. That would also be called Changai Sabha. Now all these things have been happening, but in popular culture, the only thing funny that we would find is a Hindu sadhu doing something funny. You you cannot recall any scene in any movie, in any TV program, where these this Changai Sabha or any of such kind of being made fun of, and they are naturally funny, man. You go and watch those clips, and yet they don't. So who is going to lead that resistance? Uh, yeah, yeah. So that's I. Uh, so nice moderation from the audience member. So yeah, so, so that's an external kind of thing, and the third, again external, would come from what's happening abroad. As I said, the same thing is being exported abroad now, and all this down-rating of India and all that. These are the civilizational resistance that we have to lead. And recently, say, Freedom House was forced to acknowledge that one of their ratings of India that they downgraded was based on a lie, and yet they said that okay, it was a lie, we acknowledge it, but it doesn't kind of affect India's downgrade. So that kind of we are in a situation where we have to fight on multiple fronts, and that's where I would say Satish ji to start with, because I ended with the foreign thing, and you have been leading a resistance over there. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ji. Firstly, I found myself in a position of leading the resistance. It wasn't voluntary. It was one of those situations where you step forward with a group of people, and then suddenly everybody else steps back, and you're left there. So I became the face of that resistance, but it wasn't voluntary at all. But thank you for the introduction. This subject about why civilizational resistance matters is at the heart of our gathering, I feel. This is really the crux of the matter. And we need to know what it is we're defending. Because if you don't know what it is that you're actually protecting, and you don't know what it is you're resisting against, then it's a false activity. And so I'm going to start first with just one or two small words about what it is that we are protecting. We are protecting a natural state of being. And this is the most difficult thing to protect because you don't know how to value it, because you are it. It's perfectly natural for a human being to be civilized. A human being in a mature state creates a society, creates a family, creates relationships, out of which wonderful things emerge. And the history of the Bharatiya civilization is a natural maturing of a human being. Remember, we are the people who saw that after 8.4 million incarnations, this jiva appears. That is a lot of work. That is a huge amount of effort over millennia. And it culminates in the appearance of a physical form, which we recognize. One thing that our ancients did is they opened their eyes and found themselves here. All of us, we have had that experience, haven't we? We all of us opened our eyes and found ourselves here. We didn't know what we were, we didn't know why we were here, we didn't know what our purpose was. But what our rishis did is they studied what we were, and they discovered Atma and they discovered Paramatma. And then we knew what our purpose was, and that's why we are civilized. What we are challenging is a momentum which is intended to block our access to Atma and Paramatma. And we have this as the gift to share with the rest of humanity. And the rest of humanity at the moment is like a runaway train. They are doing things without knowing why they are doing them. They're doing them without consequence or understanding of consequence, whereas we know what every action of a human being should be guiding us towards. There is nothing more imperative than defending this civilizational understanding that we have. In our Yoga Vashisht, there is a wonderful expression that bodies appear on the surface of the earth like lotuses appear on the surface of a lake. And Atmas come and attach themselves to these bodies in the same way that a bee comes and sits and drinks nectar and becomes intoxicated. At this moment in time, the very mechanisms whereby these bodies are created, free and able to mature, those very mechanisms and systems and ecosystems are being threatened. And if they are not defended, then we will see global humanity being enslaved. And that is the vision that we are challenged with. And that is the responsibility that we have to protect. I'm going to just conclude with a short. I had a memory that I was in Jaipur once before, many, many years ago. And I was here with a party of not really Indians. And there was a wedding that was being conducted here. And on the first and second evening, an Englishman who had come from England, he came and sat next to me with a pint of beer in his hand. And he'd had a few, obviously. And he said, Satish, I hear that people come to this country and they find themselves. Imagine that strange conversation. And he said, I've been here for 2 days and I'm not feeling anything. But I'm sharing that with you because globally, this is the land where people have come to find themselves. And that finding themselves is the treasure of our civilization. This is what we are defending. Thank you.
That was pretty brief, embarrassing me. So without, adding any more, I'll just go to you.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so now that Pandit Sharma ji has told us what is the thing that we are defending and why it's worth defending, let me just take the discussion to the left on how we should defend. Okay, one of the distinctive features of this civilization is that it evolved from the fundamental paganism that involved, or I'm using a word like paganism because I couldn't find something else, but the pre-Abrahamic or pre-Christian, pre-Islamic world that actually had developed up to a certain stage, but the arrival of these one God truths restricted the growth of those civilizations. We were transcended that, and we could develop all those great philosophies and ideas and metaphysics that evolved from a fundamental pagan state. But the remaining pagan world actually was stunted by the arrival of these one true God and one prophet religions. Their problem is that they were stunted growth, and the new faiths are appalled that there is one pagan faith that managed to evolve into something very high, and for them they know only destruction and war. And that those faiths, for us, it is a standing challenge to them that that something like this could evolve from what originally, say 4,000, 5,000 years, we had similar pagan faiths all over the world. But we are the only guys who actually evolved to a stage where they now want to borrow our thought process, and Panini or whoever you want to take, Patanjali, whatever it is, the yoga, the Dharma Shastra, the Nati Shastras, we had brilliant stuff developed here. And now they want to appropriate it and claim that this is not related to you. You guys are not the right claimants to this, yoga, whatever it is, to meditation, whatever it is. So this is what appalls them, that these guys evolved from a society we destroyed and we couldn't destroy. and manage to do something unusual. So that is what really rankles. So destruction of our civilization is central to their think, because if we survive, it invalidates them. They think in a binary fashion, where they feel that if we are allowed to survive, then their philosophies of destruction and a binary situation where if I am right, you have to be wrong, this is what they want to destroy. So that is one part. Now, coming directly to why civilizational defense matters, I would say society is the only organ of this country that can actually save dharma, that can save the civilization, because we are not organized well. At the cellular level, society is very well organized. If we look at the various sampradayas or various smaller groups, they're all very well organized. But at the collective level, when we group all of this into Hinduism, we are simply not well organized. So civilizational defense needs all these various groups to act in unison for their collective survival rather than just for their own survival. This is the fundamental thing we need to do, and if we don't do it, we will not do that. Yesterday, of course, we discussed whether a lot of change has to flow from the top, from power. That is true, and I think I would not go needlessly into attacking the government or whatever it is, because I think this government is a product of an electoral system that is not part of the Indian genius. It came, and they came into power. A lot of people realized that things needed to change, and they voted a government to power, and they have delivered what they think are their priorities. Okay. Problem is they have not thought strategically. They have not say, okay, Article 370, after Article 370, what is it? What are the 10 other things we need to do to make that work? They have not thought through what CAA we legislated and we thought it will work. And what do we do after that? Which means they have not thought through a strategy on how this is going to work. CAA is a flawed legislation for a different reason. We need a right to return for every dharmic person who was related to this country. We don't need a CAA that says at 2014 that's the end of story. Whoever has come before can become a citizen, but not after. And in any case, even those who came after can, after 11 years, get their citizenship. So we need the right of entry, the kind of thing that Israel has. The other thing is society and civilizational defense matters because our state is a dhimmi state. Our judiciary is a double dhimmi. You are going to have a woke liberal as the next Chief Justice, and I shudder to think what all damage he is going to do to not only our polity, but our whole thinking process. So I think we need to be able to counter these guys, and only as you see, the judiciary is scared shit. I'm sorry about the word, but to take on people who are willing to come out on the streets and say "Sartan se juda," or they are not willing to say one thing. A legislature has passed a law, and a whole bunch of guys can come and lay siege to India's capital city, and before you know, the legislation itself has to be withdrawn, and the judiciary can't do a damn thing. Okay, so regardless of the intentions of the judiciary, we have a dhimmi state, a dhimmi judiciary, and of course Sanjay Dixit talked about the Panch Makar. They are all true. The media is a disaster because media is a part of the deep state, and it continues to resist thing. So the key question I would like to make, point I would like to say, is that we have to do what Ambedkar told the Dalits to do: educate, organize, agitate. Now we have to move. I think Anand mentioned yesterday what Churchill's statement, that while one side is trying to sharpen its arguments, another side is sharpening its swords, right? So that is the thing. We need to move from a situation where, from having a Jaipur dialogue, we should have a Jaipur action group, where we say, what do we do at the level of the society? What is the action we need to take? Who will take what kind of action? And how do we organize ourselves for a better riposte to this whole dhimmi state, so that the state starts noticing us? That is the important thing. Second thing, the one simple thing I would advise, which also came from what I listened to yesterday from the Nimbitekam and Dharmansh idea. I think we must get into the habit of giving regularly to causes that we believe in, so that at least they are not badly funded. To the people who are doing good should, we cannot, we are very happy to put 10 rupees in a temple hundi, but we will not put 100 rupees in somebody who's helping Pakistani Hindu refugees to settle here or do whatever it is. So I personally take the pledge that every month I'll be giving a part of my earnings to the causes that I believe in, that I will do. And I want every Hindu, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 rupee. If you are a beggar and you get give only 1 rupee a month, fine, that's fine. But the concept of giving must be there. So that is the first step to action. After that, you must really act and move from a dialogue stage to a action stage. So that is the main thing. One more thing I'd like to say. Remember that every small victory takes us almost 2 generations. When did the Ram Janma Bhoomi agitation start? Late 70s, early 80s. When did we get the temple by this thing? 2019. It'll come by 2022, 24, whatever it is, right? So it has taken us 45 years to get one temple that we wanted for our civilizational purposes, right? So the point is, how are you going to get 100,000 temples out of state control if not even one is, even a temple that doesn't earn more than 10,000 rupees in donations every year is not being released by the state. They are controlled by the state. How are we going to do that? So this is where society needs organization. And if we don't do that, and I'll also one thing, this is one thing I will praise the Modi government for. The judiciary would never have given the Ram Janma Bhoomi verdict if Narendra Modi hadn't won decisively in 2019. Okay. This, I would say, we tend to underestimate the power of the state when how the judiciary acts. So they did not suddenly find a 5-0 verdict in favor of the Ram Janma Bhoomi because why 8 years they were doing nothing about it. They even postponed the hearing till after the verdict. Why did they do that? They could have sorted this, if they really wanted to do this, they could have done it in 2011, 12, 13, 14 after the Allahabad High Court verdict. But they didn't. They waited to see which way the people will vote. And I know I may stand in contempt, but nothing will give me greater pleasure than to stand in front of the Supreme Court and tell them in what contempt I really hold them.
Okay,
I think there is a.
on that note, I'll go to Vishnu ji. Jaggi sir ended it with the the court battle and double dhimmi judiciary. Who better to take it from here, other than you?
It's a very नमः पार्वती पते हर हर महादेव. A very slippery slope on which you have given me this mic. There I have to fight within the system. So, see the irony. First of all, I would like to thank Jaipur Dialogues and Sanjay Dixit ji, who has organized this beautiful event and who has done the work of bringing all the like-minded people on the same platform. Because it's very important to have this kind of seminars and events, because the fight which we are going to lead in the future, in that lot of support and unity is required. And to come to the topic that why civilizational resistance matters and is important, I would like to tell and put certain facts straight here. That, let me tell you, as a lawyer practicing in the Supreme Court, as well as a citizen of this country, the events which I have seen, the facts which have come to my knowledge, I feel that in our own country, the majority community has become a second grade citizen. In our own country, And this is a beautiful example of how this pseudo secularism has worked, how you have confused the entire civilization for 70 years in the garb of, in the name of the word secularism. And I must tell you here that when I was joining practice in the Supreme Court and I was joining law as a profession, as a member of bar, I had two options. The first option was to be a corporate lawyer, nicely earn money, talk in the galleries of the Supreme Court with my fellow colleagues that in this vacation, where are you going to have your vacations, in France, Germany, Italy, Europe, Middle East, or choose the path of revolution. And why did I choose this path of revolution? And I left that past of left that part of corporate lawyering was for a very simple fact. And I must tell you, there was a gang rape which happened in Meerut in 2013 with a Hindu girl who was living in the middle of a Muslim majority area. That girl was belonging from Tyagi community. And she used to be a teacher in a madrasa. I went when I heard that she has been brutally raped. So I felt as my duty, because what I read in Mahabharat, everyone has his own version of Mahabharat. But what I read from Mahabharat was that when a woman is disrespected, and if members of the society are keeping mum, Mahabharat will happen in every place. It was out of that curiosity I went and met that girl. I'm honestly telling you. When I met that girl was, she had been operated, her ovary was taken out, and she was keeping her hands on her stomach, and she was saying, भैया इन्होंने हमारा सारा evidences मिटा दिया rape का. And she was brutally raped in a madrasa. Now kindly see the irony. You would have heard in past 9 years so many incidents of PILs. So as a lawyer, and she said that भैया उस मदरसे में और 100 लड़कियां हैं जो कैप्टिविटी में हैं, मैंने उनको देखा है, प्लीज उनको बचा लीजिए. I immediately filed a petition in the Supreme Court of India, and it went before a bench of Honorable Mr. Justice Lodha, Honorable Mr. Justice Rohinton Fali Nariman, and Mr. Kurian Joseph. And when I filed that petition, I wrote in the petition that this girl has been raped. She has said in her version that there are so many girls who are still under some kind of captivity. Then please send someone. That time Akhilesh government was in UP. Please send a SIT to immediately rescue them. The Supreme Court tells me, and if you will Google my name, that Vishnu Shankar Jain has destroyed the secular fabric of the country. And as a young lawyer, my petition, they said that you withdraw your petition. You have destroyed. How can you write that Muslims have raped? It is that day a young lawyer of this country decided that one day entire community will have resistance against this kind of mindset. And sir is very right. Judiciary at many levels, they try to destroy our voices. Now coming back to the topic, we are in the land of Jaipur in Rajasthan, where Johar has happened, where we have seen that how our civilization has been destroyed. And this is the best example, and this is the best land to speak that why civilizational resistance matters. In our own country, and I'm not making any political statement, in our own country, 5,200 crore rupees are given to the members of the minority community, to the members especially of the Muslim community. For what? For giving interest-free loan to WAF so that their properties get commercialized. For giving UPSC coachings only to the members of the Muslim community. And this was being done by the past government, and this has been carried out by the present regime also. Now the point is that why not this kind of facility for the members of the majority community? Are we second-graded citizens? Point number one. Point number two, kindly see the provisions of the Waqf Act. I want to ask a question from this August platform, that whether any Pujari, Purohit, Shankaracharya, Mahant, priest, any member of any society is given a status of a public servant. I have not read any such law. But the irony is that under section 101 of the Waqf Act, the Mutwalli, the members of the Waqf board, are given the status of public servant. Meaning thereby, if you even touch them, you have committed an offense under the IPC. For uniting the property of Waqf, a survey is being conducted, and the expense of that survey is being borne by the state government under section 8 of the Waqf Act. I want to ask a question to myself, that whether any kind of this kind of regime or mechanism is there for any of the Hindu properties. And other provisions of Waqf Act are more draconian. I don't want to waste time here because I am also more eager to listen to Mr. Anand Ranganathan, whose 30 seconds never end. And I am his great admirer. I have met him for the first time here. We have always met on debates. And the way he has become the voice of all of us within that short time, which is in media, he communicates so well. So I am also eager to listen, but I am saying that civilizational resistance matters because our shivling is still in the Wazu area and the namaz is going on. That's why civilizational resistance matters.
Anand, your unfettered 30 seconds starts now.
No, thank you so much. I have 3 or 4 points to make, and let me utilize my 30 seconds at the end, at the beginning. I don't normally do this, but you know, the topic that we are discussing is why civilizational resistance matters. Now, of course, it matters. And while the resistance is happening, there are some who prosper through it. There are some who watch it. And there are some who save our civilization. So here, can I please request all of us to give a standing ovation to Vishnu Jain for the amazing never again say that minorities did not help the Hindus. Just a joke. But it is not just Vishnu, it is his father. And this whole team is now fighting. This team is fighting 115 cases for the Hindu cause. 115. And Jaggi is not just a friend, but a member of the family. And when he applauds and through conviction, he has criticized the government, and through conviction, he's praised it. But when he praises this government as far as the civilizational matters are concerned, मुझे एक meme याद आ जाती है. And it's a very old meme. I don't know how many of you know this, but there is this dais just like this, and there are about 20 politicians vying to be garlanded and all, and there is a bamboo baas laga hua, and there is a guy trying to slip in. So ये BJP is like that. सारा काम हर कोई कर रहा है, लेकिन डायस पे चढ़ के दे ट्राई एंड स्लिप इन कि मुझे भी कोई गार्लैंड लगा दे. Because the fact of the matter is, and this is why I really love this whole dialogue and the way it is going, because I'm not here to give pravachan. That is Rahul's job. I'm no, just a joke, Rahul. I'm here to have this wonderful interaction, and I'll tell you, I'm going to include two interactions that I've had with the wonderful audience since yesterday in what I'm going to say today. And the first one is, we were talking about this civilizational thing, and there is a gentleman here, I don't know whether he's here today or not, called Neeraj. So we were, there he is, his hand has gone up. Neeraj, thank you. So we were talking about civilization and why it matters, and you're going to talk about it and this and that, and then we gravitated naturally towards what the BJP is doing and everything. And he said something that has really struck, and I think that is almost like an amazing slogan. He said, BJP ये का slogan है Prime Minister का कि सबका साथ, सबका विश्वास. उसमें तो हिंदुओं का बैंड बज रहा है. स्लोगन होना चाहिए, जिसका साथ उसका विकास. जो साथ नहीं दे रहा, जो एक्टिवली चाह रहा है कि हमारी सिविलाइजेशन डिस्ट्रॉय हो और हमारी वे ऑफ लाइफ बदल जाए और कुछ और आ जाए, हम पे कुछ और लॉज लग जाएं, हम जिस चीजों में विश्वास करते हैं वो चीजें हट जाएं, उसका भी आप विकास कर रहे हो. ये तो अपने पैर पे कुल्हाड़ी मारने वाली बात होगी. सो नीरज, थैंक यू फॉर गिविंग दैट स्लोगन. देयर ही इज. जिसका साथ उसका विकास. The other thing where I again disagree with my good friend and brother Vishnu is that I used to think like him. In fact, a month ago, when someone asked me on television, and I said, look, Hindus are second-class citizens in this country, as Vishnu has said. But both of us are wrong. एक महीना हो गया है. And now, a week ago, there is a clip of mine where I say emphatically with proof that Hindus are not second-class citizens, they are eighth-class citizens. I'll give you the reasons why they're eighth. लेकिन अब वो भी change हो गया है, because yesterday another gentleman, I think Dheeraj his name was, he said, sir, ninth class citizen है, eighth नहीं. And he has given a reason that I have checked through the night, and I am including that. So now I'm going to give you the reasons why Hindus are ninth class citizens in this country. And look at the tragedy. जितने Islamists और leftists हैं, और मैं JNU से हूँ तो मुझे काफी इनके बारे में मैं बहुत अच्छी तरह जानता हूं. देश है कि ये तो हिंदू राष्ट्र बन गया है. हिंदू, अरे भाई, ऐसा कौन सा राष्ट्र है हिंदू जहां पे हिंदूज आर एक्टिवली डिस्क्रिमिनेटेड अगेंस्ट? ये कैसा हिंदू राष्ट्र? आप किसी मुस्लिम राष्ट्र को जानते हो जहां पे मुस्लिम्स आर एक्टिवली डिस्क्रिमिनेटेड अगेंस्ट? इस सऊदी अरेबिया में मुस्लिम्स के अगेंस्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हो रहा है. If we want to be a Hindu Rashtra, then we should learn from a Muslim Rashtra or some other religion or Israel. Can you give me one example in this country where Muslims are discriminated against? I seriously can't, and I'm trying to be objective here. अगर Muslims के against discrimination हो रहा है, मुझे बताओ, constitutionally बताओ, legally बताओ. कोई है नहीं ऐसा. लेकिन Hindus के against civilizational resistance, तभी मैं कह रहा हूं कि अब ये लोगों को बहुत बुरी लगेगी, but it has to come from the top down. And I'll give you the examples. When Jaggi said each of our Hindus or Indian एक रुपया ही दें, लेकिन दें, उससे राइज होगा. To that I say, एक एक रुपया जुटाने से क्या होगा? When this government has actively usurped and is preventing 7 lakh crores being given to Hindus through temples every year. 7 lakh crores. Jaggi, how many Hindus are you going to accost and say, please give 1 rupee? Will they amount to 7 lakh crores? They won't. So what comes from the top down can never be the same as what comes from the bottom up. Yes, what comes from the bottom up is important, and there are people like Vishnu who are doing this. But you watch me, I don't want to preempt this, and my heart would break, but आगे इतनी ज़्यादा आग का दरिया है विष्णु के लिए, you don't even know. इतना आग का दरिया है. I hope and pray he succeeds, but the odds are heavily stacked against him. Heavily. Not just from judiciary. इसने तो कार्बन डेटिंग मांगी भी नहीं थी. जज ने पढ़ा नहीं. जो इसने रिक्वेस्ट किया वो जज ने पढ़ा ही नहीं. डिनाई कर दिया, एएसआई को बुलाया नहीं एज एक्सपर्ट। तो इसमें ये फ्रॉम द बॉटम अप लोग क्या करें? व्हाट डू यू डू? दिस हैज टू बी फ्रॉम द टॉप डाउन। एंड हियर लेट मी गिव यू द रीजंस वन बाय वन. Let me give you the reasons why, like in that meme, every time something good happens to Hindus, BJP tries to take credit and slips in through the bamboo and say कि मेरे को भी garland कर लो. Let me give you these 9 reasons. And then you will realize कि far from being a Hindu Rashtra, this is an Islamic Republic of India. Control of Hindu temples, I've already talked about it. It's not just that the government is actively controlling our Hindu temples through an act and a legislation that the Congress overturned in 1959, the Supreme Court legislation. तो कांग्रेस ने बहुत कुछ किया है, हमें पता नहीं है, मतलब सुप्रीम कोर्ट को तो ओवरटर्न ऐसे करते हैं ऐसे कि but this government has taken more control of temples than the previous government, your Hindu Rashtra government. Okay, it is not just that it is controlling what the priest should do, what should not do, or the places of worship. No, what really matters is the money that the Hindu temples can generate. That is being controlled. The audit, when you talk to T.R. Ramesh, he is the one, just like Vishnu, he is doing a yeoman's job for our civilization. This is not a Hindu issue. How is this a Hindu issue? This is a civilizational issue. And then you realize that the government decides how much rent you will take from the land that a temple controls. And right now, it is ordering the temples to take a fraction of the rent that it is capable of taking. The loss is of 7 lakh crores, Jaggi. It is astounding. This is happening right before our eyes. And what happens when this government, through the auspices of the Prime Minister, goes and opens a corridor which is 300 crores? It spent 300 crores, or goes to Ujjain and 360 crores. Everyone is so happy. देखो civilized, देखो कौन आया. Civilizational renaissance हो रही है. That is a monthly hundi collection of Tirupati temple. So I ask you a question. Gloating that the government is spending so much on Hindu renaissance, if you left it to the Hindu temples, do you think the Tirupati would not give 300 crores to give that Kashi Vishwanath corridor? Tirupati will give 3,000 crores. And yet people are praising this government. So मेरी समझ में नहीं आता है कि ये, but this is a game. And you have to realize it. You have to appreciate it. You have to appreciate the sleight of hand, the fiendishness of somebody coming in the end to take the credit. That was the first one. Number 2, I don't want to talk too much on this, Places of Worship Act. Never before in the history of any independent nation or democracy has such a draconian act not only been passed, but is being legislated and acted upon. How can you deny 1 billion people their legitimate right to legally take back what is there? I cannot believe that we call this a land of justice. How is it possible that Kashi or Mathura or thousands of temples that have been destroyed and mosques built on them, and somebody legally wants to take back those control of those temples, and he's being denied कि नहीं, जो 15th August 1947 से पहले हुआ था वो status को रहेगा? Why? I don't understand. And the same leftists who teach us this talk about correcting historical injustices. They praise when roads and statues of the racist people or oppressors, King Leopold, they are brought down illegally. Then they praise, they are clapping Belgium में, Churchill का statue UK में, Cecil Rhodes का Oxford में, Pizarro का Mexico में. All these tormentors, their statues, their institutions are being brought down. The left is hailing that. Illegally brought down, not legally, illegally. लेकिन यहाँ पे, you can't even approach the court. Is this Hindu Rashtra? मतलब मजाक है क्या है? मुझसे ड्राफ्ट करवा देते, मैं कर देता. Okay? Then you have the Kashmiri Hindu refugees. Now this is the most painful one. In which country would you have, when you talk of this country already having become Hindu Rashtra, 7 lakh of Hindus being denied the right to passage of their own land, ethnically cleansed, raped, murdered, pillaged, driven out for 30 years. And Supreme Court says we are not going to open the cases of atrocities because too much time has elapsed. So you are calibrating justice according to the time elapsed. By that logic, 1984 के cases भी हटाइए फिर आप. वो तो 1989 से पहले हुए थे. क्या लॉजिक है ये? But इसमें, as I said yesterday, Kashmiri Hindus may be Jews, but unfortunately India is not Israel. गलती किसकी है? स्टेट की नहीं है. 40,000 रोहिंग्या सेटल हो गए कश्मीर में, लेकिन 1,500 कश्मीरी हिंदू सेटल नहीं हो पा रहे. ये हिंदू राष्ट्र है. नंबर 4, वक्फ एक्ट. इसमें आंखें जो मेरी रियली खोली हैं वो विष्णु ने खोली हैं. 1995 में वक्फ एक्ट आया. इससे ज्यादा ड्रैकोनियन सिर्फ 1991 प्लेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट. इन दोनों में कंपटीशन चल रहा है कौन ज्यादा ड्रैकोनियन है. इट्स क्रेजी. 70% ऑफ दिल्ली इज सेट टू बी अंडर वक्फ कंट्रोल. मैंने तो मजाक मजाक में कहा था कि टाइम स्टूडियो में जब मैं ये बोल रहा था इस पे कि मैंने कहा ये तो नहीं है वक्फ में, वो निकला वक्फ एक्ट का. When I tweeted it, किसी ने मजाक में कहा सर ये जो सेंट्रल विस्टा है ये वो वक्फ बोर्ड का है. सेंट्रल विस्टा पे एक मस्जिद है जो वक्फ बोर्ड ने कंट्रोल किया, वो पूरा लैंड राजपथ इज वक्फ कंट्रोल. क्या चल रहा है ये? एंड इट इज सो ड्रैकोनियन, दे विल यूसर्प योर लैंड. यू कांट इवन गो टू द कोर्ट. अभी हाल ही में जजमेंट आई कि यू कैन गो टू द कोर्ट. उससे पहले 40 साल, ये 30 साल पहले यू कांट इवन गो टू द कोर्ट. दीज आर द पावर्स आर ड्रैकोनियन. कमिश्नर आ सकता है आपका इंस्पेक्ट करने के लिए. एक ऐसा टेंपल जो कि इस्लाम के आने से 100 साल पहले बना था, वो वक्फ बोर्ड कह रहा है हमारे लैंड में. ये हिंदू राष्ट्र का लॉजिक है. नंबर 5, शबरीमला. नहीं, माइनॉरिटी स्ट्रांग नहीं है, मेजॉरिटी वीक है. If you are jealous of somebody else's unity, you are divided.
Anand,
टाइम हो गया, अभी तो 4 ही हुए हैं.
हाँ, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. I'll ask the audience, do they want? ये मेरा ब्रह्मास्त्र है ये राहुल. शबरीमला जजमेंट. अब इसमें आप ये देखिए. यस सर, प्लीज.
To find out which are out way out to go. That is what we request from this speaker's audience.
Sir, while I partly agree with you, let me also say this, as I corrected myself and Vishnu ji, even today when they say we are second-class citizens, no, I'm giving you proof. And hopefully this has educated me. That's why I'm trying to say. So I don't think we knew all this. At least I didn't know all this. You have the Shabrimala judgment. Now here you look at the irony of it. Supreme Court ruled that even menstruating women would be allowed because it was discrimination against them. And even my eyes were opened by another blistering force of nature isn't here amongst us, Jesai, but he is in our thoughts. That should not be misconstrued. But the fact of the matter is this was perceived discrimination. There are many Hindu temples where men are not allowed. There are many Shabrimala temples where women are allowed. This was only the case because the deity had desired so. But Supreme Court did not see this thing. Supreme Court will not rule for women, Catholic women being ordained as priests. They are not, they cannot be. Catholic women cannot be, but that is not discrimination. Muslim women cannot enter the sanctum sanctorum of mosque, but that is not discrimination. Hindus के केस में जो perceived discrimination है, जो है नहीं, उस पे आगे कूद पड़े. This is another. RTE Act. This is so painful, and this is where I bring in the gentleman who came and told to me, sir, आपको Article 28 और Article 30 के बारे में पता है. RTE is right to education is so discriminatory against Hindus, it is going to kill all the education that people want to bestow, Hindus want to their future generations. Government and Swarajya has a beautiful article by Nair on this. Even Anant has written on this. Now, blatant discrimination. And why? Because Article 28 says no religion instruction shall be provided in any educational institution wholly maintained out of state funds. UP and Assam collectively are running 1300 madrasas. वो नहीं कर रहे, स्टेट फंडिंग नहीं है, वो मदरसा में क्या पढ़ा रहे हैं, वेदास पढ़ा रहे हैं. यार, there is already a competition between कौन सबसे पहले सर तन से जुदा होगा. Please don't encourage that. Article 31 of the Constitution states, and I quote, all minorities, whether based on religion or language, shall have the right to establish and administer educational institution of their choice. Minorities can, majorities can't. The Indian government will determine the quota of the Hindu schools, 25%. It will dictate. Teachers cannot be through religious affiliation, government will dictate. This is not discrimination. ये हिंदू राष्ट्र में हो रहा है. Number 7, communal violence bill, thank God, ये draft में ही रहा, but this would have come. Had UPA come again, इसमें I give credit to Modi ji that at least this, ये bill नहीं आया, so अल्लाह का लाख लाख शुक्र है. क्योंकि भले ही मेरे एक हाथ में कंप्यूटर है, दूसरे में कुरान है, so that is why. You know what this entailed? That in condition of any communal riot, the majority will be responsible. ये कहाँ का natural justice है? It's unbelievable. Kashmir में the majority are the Muslims, the minority are the Hindus. But according to this definition, if there was a riot in Kashmir Valley, Hindus would have been arrested because they are the majority. It's crazy. And very quickly coming to article, the 8th reason, the final reason. Because I have clubbed, वो 9th वाला मैंने RT में ही क्लब कर दिया, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के उन्होंने आर्टिकल्स बताए थे, तो अभी भी 8 ही है, कुछ और हो आप मुझे बता दीजिएगा. Roads, institutions, naming on barbarians. Now this really, and Vikram is here and we've had this amazing discussions on, this is the most painful one. Meenakshi ji is here. बाकी सारे लीगल हैं, चेंज हो सकते हैं, लेकिन ये मेंटालिटी कैसे चेंज होगी? अभी भी आप टीपू को यूलोजाइजिंग टीपू जयंती कर रहे हैं, औरंगजेब को आप कुछ कह नहीं सकते, राइट्स हो जाएंगी. 4.9 मिलियन हिंदूज वर किल्ड. ठीक है. द प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज यूलोजाइजिंग सेंट फ्रांसिस जेवियर. द प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज यूलोजाइजिंग चिश्ती. दे वांटेड हिंदुइज्म, हिंदूज, इंडिया डिस्ट्रॉयड, लॉक, स्टॉक एंड बैरल, एंड येट we have our roads named on them. And if we want to remove those road names, then those Velcro fraud historians say ki nahi, you can't do that. So what I'm saying is, and I end here without taking my 30 seconds, just 10 seconds. The fact of the matter is that we are a strange, ironical situation where people who call this a Hindu Rashtra, there are 8 legitimate, bona fide, watertight reasons where Hindus are being actively discriminated against. ये कैसा हिंदू राष्ट्र है जहां पे हिंदूज का बैंड बज रहा है? Thank you so much.
Okay, we started late, so I think we would have some time for at least the closing remarks from our speakers. We can go in that direction, especially, you know, as the audience member said, कि अगर हम ये कह सकें कि way forward क्या हो सकता है, not necessarily, but हाँ, अगर वो रहे हमारे concluding remarks में तो much better.
देखिए, जो यहाँ पे प्रोफेसर कपिल कुमार ने हम लोगों को गाइड किया, जो उनका दर्द झलक रहा है, वो दर्द मेरे बाबूजी का भी है. वो भी ऐसे ही बोलते हैं कि अब करना क्या है, आगे क्या करना है. तो मैं बहुत ही संजीदगी से, विनम्रता से, उनका अनुज होने के नाते और आप सबको ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जितना हमें इन सारी चीज़ों पे बात करने से मत रोकिए. उसका मैं लॉजिक देना चाहता हूँ. जितना ये सिविलाइजेशन ये समझेगी, इनको बार बार ये बताना पड़ेगा कि आपके साथ अन्याय हुआ है, अत्याचार हुआ है, ये सब जब सारी बातें बताई जाएंगी, लोगों को एजुकेट किया जाएगा, उसी के बाद ये सिविलाइजेशन उठ खड़ी होगी. इस तरह के सेमिनार बहुत जल्दी, हमारी सिविलाइजेशन के अंदर एक प्रॉब्लम है, हम भूलते बहुत जल्दी। रिपीटेडली टाइम एंड अगेन बताना पड़ेगा कि वफ एक्ट एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है, प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है, शिवलिंग हमारा वजू टैंक में पड़ा हुआ है। और तभी एक दिन ऐसा आएगा, जैसे 6 दिसंबर 92 की घटना हुई थी, तो उससे पहले एक मोमेंटम बना था। मैं उन नारों के बीच में पैदा हुआ हूं, जब बोला जाता था बच्चा बच्चा राम का, जन्मभूमि के काम का, सौगंध राम की खाते हैं, मंदिर वहीं बनाएंगे। बोलते रहते थे, बोलते बोलते हो गया। ऐसे ही बोलने दीजिए सर, बोलते बोलते हिंदू राष्ट्र भी बनेगा। और मैं एक बात कहना चाहता हूं अपने क्लोजिंग रिमार्क्स में, हमारी सिविलाइजेशन जाग चुकी है। अगर हमारी सिविलाइजेशन जागी ना होती, तो जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा था कि इस साल तिरुपति की जगन्नाथपुरी की रथ यात्रा नहीं हो सकती है, वो ऑर्डर टर्न करना पड़ा। जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा था राम मंदिर केस में, जैसे कि अभी वन ऑफ द स्पीकर्स ने यहां पे कहा कि दिस इज नॉट अ इंपॉर्टेंट केस फॉर अस, उसी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने 40 दिन लगातार हियरिंग करके जजमेंट दिया। तो हमारी सिविलाइजेशन जाग चुकी है। जरूरत है हम सब लोग को यूनाइट होने की, इस तरह के सेमिनार्स करने की, अपनी आवाज रेस करने की। और मैं फिर से अपने क्लोजिंग रिमार्क्स में जयपुर डायलॉग को, संजय दीक्षित जी को बहुत बहुत हृदय की गहराइयों से धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं कि उन्होंने हमें एक ऐसा मंच दिया कि एटलीस्ट समाज के लोग आके ये सारी बातें कर सकें। इसके लिए उनका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
विष्णु जी, आपसे एक मिनट, ऑडियंस क्वेश्चंस हैं कुछ विष्णु जी आपसे, वो क्विकली कर लेते ताकि बाकी लोगों के। तो एक दीपक जी हैं देवभूमि से कि कृष्ण जी को उनका घर कब मिलेगा, क्या सरकार संसद में कानून लाके मंदिर नहीं बना सकती? ये कृष्ण भगवान को तो उनका घर कब मिलेगा, क्या सरकार संसद में कानून नहीं बना सकती?
See, the point is this, and I believe, and I hope that Anand ji will correct me and we will differ on this point, that if the government will intervene, and I hope that this question which he has asked, it may happen. The government can bring a law like this. But the problem is that in the electoral setup, as one of our speakers had said, in the electoral setup we are having, justice has to be done, and it should seem that justice has been done. Therefore, if there is a dispute between the two communities, I believe that first it should be settled through a narrative, through a law, legal process, through courts. And then only if there is any difficulty, the politicians must intervene. This is what I feel.
Okay. Another question for you. Yeah, there is another question for you from Mr. Vasant Shetty. How can we Hindus contribute to your great cause?
The contribution can be, and I must be very honest, that when we have done this entire exercise, actually me and my father took it. I'm very grateful, and I must be very candid with all of you. I'm very grateful कि आपने इतना प्यार दिया, इतनी इज्जत दी, इतना मान सम्मान दिया, क्योंकि हम लोग तो उस दौर को मैंने देखा है जब लोग मेरे पिताजी को पागल कहते। तो आपने इज्जत दी, इतना मान सम्मान दिया, इतना प्यार दिया, यही कंट्रीब्यूशन है, इससे ज्यादा मैं कुछ नहीं।
That's great. वर्षा कौरव, इनका थोड़ा मुझे शायद उतना समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि पॉक्सो इज ओनली फॉर हिंदूज, गर्ल्स एट एज ऑफ 15 years मैरिड बट इट इज लीगल, ऐसा है क्या? अच्छा, यहाँ हिंदू लिखा है।
Correct.
Okay.
You are right.
For
Actually,
Muslims,
that is why we are looking for a uniform code so far as the marriage age of girls, and that's why I say, and that question is very relevant, because when we talk about uniform civil code, we must not get confused that what we want to bring in uniform civil code. First is uniformity in the age of marriage, not at the age of 9 years. Uniformity in the age of marriage, that is point number one, and the number of marriage. I must tell you, and Anand sir, please add one more reason to that list. 9, please, and I'm giving you a very valid reason. Just give me 30 seconds, and I'll complete this. I'll tell you one more law. We all know why we call uniform civil code, because it's a basic principle that criminal law has to be uniform. It can't happen that if I have come committed an offense of theft, for that same offense, if I have committed or Anand ji has committed or anyone has committed, the penalty will be the same. But I'll tell you one more law where the penalty is not the same. That is section 494 IPC. If a Hindu does more than one marriage, it's a punishment under section 494 IPC of bigamy. I'm not saying here that I want to marry more than one. Please don't take me in that way. But I am saying that section 494, and I have done a lot of research and I have argued before the Constitution bench, they have issued notice. We have said that if there is a punishment for more than one marriage, it has to be uniform for all. It can't happen that another community is doing 4 marriages and there's no punishment. So for the same act, Hindus are being punished and the members of the other community are not being punished. So that's why section 494, and I found out 4 words only in section 494 IPC. If they are interpreted, there'll be uniformity, and we need not bring population control or uniform civil code. Just amend 4, strike down 4 words of section 494, bring uniformity in the age of marriage of girls, and that's the best solution for a uniform civil code.
Sure.
So just to be clear on that, you are saying that Hindus should not be punished or should be punished if they marry again?
No, Hindus.
Clarify kar lo, nahi?
No, I am saying that section 494 is there, which says that more than one marriage is an offense. But that offense should be for everyone. There should be no exception to the members of the Muslim community.
Okay, one last question for you from Mr. Arvind Purohit. Under what law Supreme Court can say that they will not listen to the Kashmiri Pandit genocide case?
See, the
or
Supreme
exodus?
Court is supreme. If there is someone over Supreme Court, it is my Lord Adi Visheshwar, who will one day say and correct all those historical wrongs.
Great. I'll come to Satish ji at the end. There is one question for you, Anand. So I'm coming to you with this question and then your concluding remarks. That being an atheist, what are the values of Sanatan civilization you identify with, and what are the common minimum points any Sanatani can align with, or rather you align with?
Right. So I've
This is from Vimal Shah.
Okay, so let me clarify that I see myself as a Darwinian atheist, not those communist wale atheists, no fraud atheists. Number 2, culturally, I am a Hindu. Genetically, I am an Ethiopian. हम सारे Ethiopians हैं, हम सब Lucy के descendants हैं. That is what science tells us, and that is glorious. But why I love being culturally a Hindu is that look at the glorious irony of this philosophy, where even atheists are encouraged. Look at the irony. आप हिंदू को religion कह रहे हैं, religion में एक sect है, religion में एक sect है लिंगायत, जो कि वेदास को नहीं मानते. इतने sects हैं, इससे ज़्यादा glorious क्या हो सकता है? So this is our civilization. यही civilization है. और इसलिए मैं बार-बार इस point पे आता हूँ, just to as concluding remarks also, और मैंने ये number 9 add कर लिया है, section 494, with a caveat that Vishnu ji is saying that Hindus should also be allowed to marry again. That is the thing. So just concluding remarks में again इसमें यहाँ पे differ करूँगा कि लोग कहते हैं कि हमें जागृत हो रहा है. कपिल जी ने बहुत I feel for the anger that he has. If I did not have a heart condition, I would probably have had the same this thing. But BP की थोड़ा वो है. But the issue is ग्राउंड पे हिंदुओं को नहीं करना है. जो हिंदुओं को आपको समझ में नहीं आ रही है बात. जो हिंदूज को ग्राउंड पे करना था वो उन्होंने कर दिया. अपनी गवर्नमेंट इलेक्ट कर दी. और डेमोक्रेसी में क्या करना है? आपको सड़क पे आओगे तो काम कौन करेगा? सड़क पे तो ये जेएनयू वाले स्टूडेंट्स आते हैं, अनएम्प्लॉयड जो होते हैं. आपको काम करना है अपना. आपको खेत चलाने हैं, बिजनेस चलाने हैं. आप सब जैसे सुप्रीम कोर्ट कहता है सड़क पे आके बताओ ना कितने लोग फॉर है फार्म लॉज. तो फार्म्स कौन चलाएगा भाई? And later on, it turned out that 81% of farmer lobbies were actually for the farm reforms, but Supreme Court suppressed that thing. So don't come on the streets. You elected a government for the reason that it would, if not work actively for the Hindu causes, at least remove the discrimination. भाई आप प्रो हिंदू मत बनिए, एंटी हिंदूनेस को तो हटा दो यार. इक्वालिटी तो लाओ. यहां तो उल्टी गंगा बह रही है. गंगा जमुना कह के गंगा भी धर ली, यमुना भी धर ली. And you can't do anything. गणेश चतुर्थी के लिए आप अपना वक्फ बोर्ड का कंट्रोल कर रखा है, वो लैंड भी नहीं, आपको कोर्ट जाना पड़ता है. सो आई एम फॉर टॉप डाउन. ओनली कावर्ड्स will support things that will oppose this, that top down नहीं होना चाहिए. अगर आपको डर लगता है, डर किस बात का है? आपको, आप इलेक्ट हुए हैं, आप डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हटाइए. Bottom up is something that is happening organically. How will you? It is not activism. Bottom up. You read Meenakshi Jain's book. Bottom up has been happening for 1,000 years, ever since the invaders came. How else do you think Hindus saved their civilization? It was through bottom up. It wasn't that Chhatrapati Shivaji said कि सारे हिंदूज ये करेंगे. नहीं, सबने अपने अपने दादा परदादा सबने मूर्तियां बचाई, सब कन्वर्ट के हम मर जाएंगे, कन्वर्ट नहीं होंगे, सबने ये किया है. वो बॉटम अप था. बट अब आपकी गवर्नमेंट है, हिंदूज के अगेंस्ट टॉप डाउन से डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हटाइए. आई एम सॉरी, आई डिसएग्री विद ऑल द पैनलिस्ट्स हियर. थैंक यू.
Jaggi, do you also disagree? I mean, he has
No, I
preemptively
have no
disagreed.
objection to the part he says where the government must do it, but I do not believe that our job ends by just putting a vote and saying, now आप कर दीजिए, I have given you a contract for 5 years, अब 5 साल में जो करना है कर दीजिए. No, without ground level civilizational action, societal action, even the government is not going to do anything because they are sitting there 5 years. आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते, मैं कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ, मैं पैसा बनाऊंगा, मैं I mean पूरा जगत घूम के आऊंगा, but करने को. So without the ground level pressure, let's take the case of the Muslim community. They are not in power anywhere. Okay, why is it that anything that the government does can be stopped? Is it because the society is stronger and is able to stop things, or is it did they need government power to stop anything they don't want? But we don't have that. We need to do that. If you don't get into the ground, you will not. He wants my 30 seconds also. Okay.
Why the Muslims get their right? Because they have their government on top.
No, yes and no. I mean, but they're not technically supposed to be their government. They're supposed to be our government. We elected them. But I'm saying you. It won't work. Yeah. So we need to get our act together, and the two things that I immediately proposed to in my earlier thing, I'll just conclude with that. I think two things we need to do, like we need to move from dialogue to action. I think the narrative change process is happening individually. Lots of people here have done this on their own YouTube channels, social media, or wherever they've done. But we have to move from there. Maybe in the next Jaipur dialogue session, you should have a closed door meeting of people who are acting on various fronts. Make it the Jaipur Action Group, and so that coordinate their activities, make sure that they come out on the streets. And as individuals, I think we need to contribute to the groups that are actually doing the action. So these two things are starting points. After that, we will find that you're getting your act together and the government will move. Because the minute the government sees a mob collecting somewhere, they know they have to do something. Without that mob, nothing is going to happen. He says, 5 साल बाद देख लेते हैं, जब आप वोट डालने जा रहे हैं तभी हम 300 यूनिट फ्री इलेक्ट्रिसिटी दे देंगे, आप फिर से वही कर देंगे. तो फिर उसमें फायदा क्या है? हमारा काम नहीं हो रहा है, वही तो है.
Okay. Satish, I mean, your concluding remarks and your guidance, and then we can close the session.
30 seconds. Thank you. Before making my closing remarks, I just want to...
The only person who doesn't say take 30 seconds is my wife. I'm just clarifying.
I had such a wonderfully organized train of thought, and now the image has gone completely to be replaced by what Anand just said. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to convey my father's best wishes and compliments to your father and to yourselves for the work that you do. It is appreciated in many, many places, which perhaps you don't really know about, but it is. So, speaking as a citizen of a different nation and being located somewhere a long way away, it gives me what I think is a unique perspective, because sometimes you have to go a long way to see something clearly. Those people who live on a mountain have never seen a mountain. and those who live a long way away appreciate its majesty in a different way. So I've got a couple of thoughts, having listened to my respected and esteemed colleagues, which I just want to put in front of you. Firstly, when there has not been a Hindu citizen in this country since the Delhi Sultanate, that is not a small statement to make, because a citizen has a unique set of rights, and those rights have not been available to Hindus since the Delhi Sultanate. The second thing is that although you see a smiling face, when from where I live I look over, I'm reminded more of Abhimanyu and a Chakravyuh, because Hindus have been in a Chakravyuh ever since the Delhi Sultanate, and we have been Abhimanyu, the flower of the family. And I don't think you see that we are still in a Chakravyuh. The whole nation was a Chakravyuh, a killing ground for Hindus. Pakistan was formed as a Chakravyuh in which Hindus were destroyed and are still being destroyed. Abhimanyu is still being killed. The constitution of this country is a Chakravyuh. The word secular, socialist is a Chakravyuh. And you can't modify a Chakravyuh to make it a comfortable Chakravyuh. It has to be broken. And we need to understand that Abhimanyu cannot break it. Arjun is the only one who could break it. Now, I have a little bit of a dharm sankat in that I don't know the nuances of the political situation here. But every time a new Bharatiya High Commissioner comes to London, I make an appointment to go and see them. After Palghar, I met with the High Commissioner and I said, I have a dharm sankat. I don't want to do anything to undermine a government which has been elected by the majority Hindu population. But there is no Hindu voice in the Indian state. There is no voice speaking up at a state level for the protection of this ancient civilization. How can I speak and do anything to support the Hindu voice without demeaning the status of the Indian government? So that is a dharm sankat. But having listened to much of what has been said and the sentiment that has been expressed, we need a strong Hindu voice to have state protection. The Jewish people fought to get one thing, and that was a state-level voice for their religious identity. Nowhere on the earth is there a state-level voice for the Hindu religious identity. This needs to happen. And it's not going to happen without concerted effort. But there is one other thing that I want to conclude with, and that is that my experience of Leicester is worth every Hindu understanding. I visited Leicester during the difficulties and afterwards, and I met with a group of prominent businessmen, and one of them, he said to me, he said, Satish, I have a business which we're producing over 40,000 items every week. And we have had a wonderful relationship and everything is harmonious here. Until last week, when on the same day, I had 3 telephone calls, all from my suppliers, all of whom are members of one community, and they have decided not to supply me. And he said, my business has disappeared overnight. Why? Because he used to fund and support some of the religious festivals, Ganesh Chaturthi, etc. And the members of this community who were his supply chain had decided they could not support him. So those business people who think that they are immune to the civilizational shifts and the needs of the indigenous people of this country, and that they will be okay, you will not be okay. We are at that 5 villages time. In the Mahabharata, Krishnji goes as a Shanti Dut and asks for 5 villages. Nahi mile the na, ab bhi nahi milenge. And so we have to understand this situation. So if the requirement of the time is that we need to challenge the government in a democratic manner, to advise them of the support of a voice that they're not hearing, then we have to do that. And so I'm going to appeal to those people who are of financial substance, whose children do not need their efforts in order to secure their future comforts. Those people of substance, they have a duty to this civilization to support each and every person who at personal exposure and risk is stepping forward to defend the Seema, the boundary of this civilization. Without your support, you will not have anything left. They will not be able to do this defense work. The one thing I think we would really benefit from is a voice at the United Nations. The elder gentleman who asked, what do we do? If there is a group of people who are willing to come together and create support for a voice for the Hindu community at the United Nations, I will bring my team to be able to put that into place. Every denomination has a voice at the United Nations. Nations have a voice there, but religions have a voice there. Christianity has a very strong presence at the United Nations. There are rapporteurs who are engaged in this conversation. Every religious tradition has a voice there. Our Hindu tradition does not have a voice there. But I am absolutely certain that if a group of Hindus were to present a case and petition the United Nations for the protection of the rights of the indigenous people of this country, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the government, would definitely listen. I present that to you as a possible solution. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point on which we can, close this session. We overshot the time, but we started late as well. Thank you for being a wonderful audience, and thank you, Sanjay ji, again.